Right, folks. Here we are. It's Wednesday, the 13th of August, and honestly, it feels like August just got started yesterday. The days are flying in, the season's already underway, and yet Celtic still seem to have a mountain of business left to sort in this transfer window. And before you ask, no, it doesn't shut tomorrow. We've still got time, right up until the start of September, but when you look at the current state of affairs, you've got to wonder what exactly is going on behind the scenes. Now, look, I know the transfer talk's usually the juicy bit, the bit everyone tunes in for, the rumors, the speculation, the here we goes. But today, believe it or not, there's not all that much bubbling away. It's been oddly quiet. And that's maybe the most unsettling part. We're in the middle of a massive Champions League push, trying to get over that final hurdle, and the squad's still lacking depth in more than a few key areas. But alright, before we get lost in the void of transfer frustrations, there are a few things worth chatting about. First off, we plug for the chat we had the other day with a City fan and podcaster who gave us some insight into young Jamal Simpson Puzzy. Now, he's a player that probably wouldn't have seen as much first-team action last season if it wasn't for the injury crisis at Manchester City. But when he did get on the pitch, he actually handled himself well. Didn't look rattled. Maybe not the most confident on the ball, which you'd expect given the system City play, but solid enough. If he does come to Celtic, he's not exactly landing into chaos. Far from it. This isn't a squad that's all over the place. There's structure, there's identity, there's a system. He'd be stepping into a team with a clear plan. And that's crucial for a young defender. What's interesting is that he's versatile. He's not tied to one side of the defense, played both right and left center back across his appearances last season. And if that kind of flexibility's real, that's massive. It gives Brendan options, especially with the way our backline's been looking lately. Still, let's not get ahead of ourselves. No confirmation yet, no done deals, and no real noise from inside Parkhead. But it's a name to keep an eye on. Speaking of which, on Monday, we put out the second episode of the Celtic Way Weekly over on the YouTube channel. That was myself and John having a good proper dive into some of the lesser seen stuff at Celtic. We're talking Dermot Desmond, Paul Tisdale, and some of the thinking going on at boardroom level. Now I'll admit I'm biased, but it was genuinely interesting to break down some of the strategy, or lack thereof, behind the scenes. If you've not caught that one, give it a watch. It's 50 minutes of pure Celtic chat, and what more could you ask for? But here's where things really start to get real. We now know exactly who's standing in our way when it comes to the Champions League group stage. And it's not a name that many fans will have been hoping for, or maybe even expecting. It's FC Kairat, Kazakhstan's champions, who dumped out Slovan Bratislava on penalties in what turned out to be a total roller coaster of a second leg. Slovan won the match 1-0 on the night, but it went to pens. They were 3-1 up in the shootout, cruising, and then collapsed. Missed their final two, and Kairat slotted theirs home with nerves of steel. 4-3, game over, and suddenly it's a 6,000-kilometer flight to Almaty for Celtic. And get this, our old pal Vladimir Weiss, the former Rangers winger, lost the plot at full time. Proper meltdown stuff. He squared up to the referee and got a straight red. You love to see it. So now it's set. First leg at Celtic Park, Wednesday the 20th of August, under the lights, 8 p.m. kickoff. Second leg, Tuesday the 26th, away in Almaty. No exact kickoff time confirmed yet, but if we look at Kairat's home qualifiers so far this season, they've all been around 4 p.m. Glasgow time. That's the thing with the time difference. It's 4 hours ahead over there, so what's evening for them feels like mid-afternoon here. And I know this might sound basic, but that time difference actually matters when you think about it from a footballing perspective. Playing away in Europe is never easy, but when you add in a long-haul flight, a time zone shift, unfamiliar conditions, it starts to build up. Not just physically, but mentally too. You're talking 14 hours of total travel time, there and back, within the space of a week. Now, let's not buy into this whole nightmare scenario nonsense, which I've seen floating about online. Come on. Let's rewind a couple of months. When the draw was still up in the air, we could have ended up with Bodo Glimt, Copenhagen, Red Star Belgrade, absolute horror ties. Kairat, while a tough side, and certainly not a walkover, isn't the worst we could have pulled. And I do think people forget that the travel cuts both ways. Celtic have to fly out there, but Kairat also have to come here. and it's even tougher for them in terms of the time zone. When they play at Celtic Park, that match is kicking off at midnight Kazakhstan time. By the time the game finishes, they'll be running about the pitch at 2 in the morning their time. That's not nothing. That's a serious test of focus and stamina. And there's history on our side as well. When Kazakh teams have come to Celtic Park in the past, we've punished them late. Remember James Forrest's 92nd minute goal against Shakhtar Karagandhi? Or Musa Dembele's last minute penalty against Astana? Even in the 5-0 win over Alashkert, we kept scoring late on. There's something about those sides fading in the final 10 minutes. Maybe due to the travel, maybe the atmosphere, maybe both. But we've seen it before and we'll be hoping to see it again. That said, the away leg, a whole different beast. Almaty's no easy place to go. The stadium's tight, the crowd's intense, the heat's oppressive. We're talking 30 degrees most days right now. Maybe it'll drop a bit by the evening kickoff, but it's still going to be uncomfortable, and you've got to respect their record at home. This season alone, they've already beaten the champions of Slovakia, Finland, and Slovenia. 3 clean sheets, 3 solid performances, and in recent seasons, they've also taken down the likes of Red Star Belgrade, Maccabi Haifa, AZ Alkmaar. These boys know how to play at home. So the key for us, no question, is to get a lead at Parkhead. A proper lead. Because going over their level, or worse, trailing, that's when it gets dangerous. That's when the heat, the pitch, the crowd, and the travel start to work against us. Thing is, though, their away record is nothing to shout about. 9 losses in their last 13 European away ties. 1 win in that stretch. And it's not like they've been playing giants either. We've got to make that count. Now, all of this would be stressful enough on its own. But of course, right after that second leg in Kazakhstan, we've got our first trip to Ibrox of the season. That's right. A Sunday showdown 5 days after flying halfway across the world. And back! It's not ideal, but, and this is where I think a bit of perspective's needed, it's not the end of the world either. The return leg in Almaty is Tuesday afternoon. The derby's on Sunday. That gives us almost 5 full days to recover. And it's not like the lads are flying Ryanair. They'll be on a chartered flight with beds, full recovery facilities, top-class treatment. They'll be fine. And let's not forget, Rangers are away to Club Brugge in Belgium that week. Their match is on Wednesday night, so they're flying too. They've got less rest than us, so no excuses, no complaints. Get the job done in Europe, come back, and let's get after them at Ibrox. Now, I know I've thrown a lot at you already, but just before we wrap this part up, we've got to touch on that wee bit of drama involving Rangers and their postponed fixture. Remember how they requested to delay their match against St. Mirren under the new SPFL rules that allow clubs to move games when they've got European commitments? Aye, they were all set to skip that match until they clocked the math. If Celtic play our game against Livingston and win, we could go 7 points clear before heading to Ibrox, even if we've played a game more. Suddenly, Rangers aren't so keen on the postponement. They've pulled the request and now they'll play St. Mirren as scheduled. You've got to laugh, eh? It's like they looked at the table, panicked, and thought, nope, we can't be going into the Derby 7. Points behind. Classic. Meanwhile, what's Celtic doing? Quietly getting on with it, playing the games, taking care of business, not making a fuss, just focusing on the football. That tells you everything you need to know about the mindset at the 2 clubs right now. Now shifting gears a wee bit, let's talk about Lennon Miller, because that saga's now officially over. Not that it was ever really a saga from our end. The young lad's off to Udinese, done deal, signed and sealed. Motherwell have announced it as a club record sale, and the reports say the fee's sitting somewhere around 4.7 million quid, plus a few extras and add-ons. He signed a 5-year contract with the Italian side, and that's that. Now look, let's be honest, this was never a transfer the Celtic were truly in for. A few people maybe hoped we'd swoop in and make something happen. And he's clearly talented, but it's felt for weeks, maybe even months, that the club were never going to seriously chase it. He was scouted, sure, you'd expect that. But there was no real movement, no offer, no noise, no traction. And I suppose the question becomes, why? Because 4.7 million is absolutely within our spending range. That's not mad money in today's market, especially not for someone with his potential. So why didn't Celtic go for him? Maybe it's a squad balance issue. You look at our midfield just now, and even someone like Paulo Bernardo, who's had good spells, is finding himself as like the sixth choice option. That tells you how crowded it is in there. Bringing in another central midfielder, especially one who'd need time to adjust, might just have felt unnecessary to the decision makers. Doesn't mean it's the right call, mind you, but maybe that's their thinking. Still, there's always that little worry in the back of your mind, right? That nagging thought that we'll look back on this in 3 or 4 years and think, why didn't we make the move? The same way we all still kick ourselves over John McGinn. That one was different, mind. We were in for McGinn. We just fumbled it. With Miller, it seems more like we just sat it out. Time will tell. He's got a big future, no doubt, and we'll be watching from a distance now. As for other names floating about, truth be told, it's all a bit of a ghost town at the moment. The usual suspects keep popping up in the papers. Names like Ballack, Wisher, Braham, Montano, Aubert, but nothing solid. It's all just whispers, rehashes, and the same links we've been hearing for weeks. Feels like there's no real urgency coming from the club. I'll be honest, it's starting to worry folk. And look, I know I've already said it, but I'll say it again because it bears repeating. Tomorrow night, Thursday at 11 p.m. That's the UEFA deadline to register our squad for the Champions League playoff round against Kairat. 25 players locked in. But here's the thing, even if we don't register everyone by then, there's a little bit of breathing room. UEFA allow you to make 2 late additions right up until 24 hours before kickoff. So technically, we've got until next Tuesday at 11 p.m. to get 2 new players and still register them for the tie. But come on, let's be real. Does it feel like we're about to sign anyone in the next 6 days? Not really. In fact, it feels like the squad we've got right now, well, flaws and all, is the one that'll be walking out onto the pitch at Celtic Park next Wednesday. And it's frustrating because if we don't get through this tie and we miss out on the Champions League money, we're not just standing still, we're moving backwards. It's not just about prestige anymore. It's about revenue exposure, keeping the best players happy. If we fall at the final hurdle because we didn't strengthen, people are going to be furious. And rightly so. Now, shifting from the first team for a minute, let's talk about Celtic B. They were in action last night, kicking off their campaign in what used to be the Challenge Cup, but now has some fancy new name. The KDM Evolution Cup, or something equally daft. Honestly, no idea what KDM stands for, but that's where we are now. New format too. Instead of straight knockouts, it's a league-style group phase to start, and then the top teams go through to the proper knockout stages where the championship clubs enter. Anyway, Celtic B faced off against Clyde last night and came away with a solid 3-1 win. What was interesting was the team we put out. The new rules allow for a stronger side to be named in this competition, and you could tell a few more familiar faces from preseason were involved. Callum Osman, Sean McCardo, Kobe Donovan, lads we've seen knocking around the first team training setup. Osman got the opener, and it was actually just minutes after Clyde had a man sent off. Last man challenge on Osman himself, so you could say he sparked the whole thing into life. McCarto and Samuel Izaguzu added 2 more before Clyde pulled one back, but we were always in control. It's a good start to the competition, and more importantly, it gives these young lads a proper platform to keep pushing. You never know who might step up if we're hit with injuries later in the season. Now, while we're on the subject of matches, the officials for Friday night have been announced, and we've got a new name in the middle, referee Lloyd Wilson. We'll see how he handles things at Celtic Park. Assistants are Chris Ray and Gray McNeely. And on VAR duty, of course, is John Beaton, a familiar name. Assistant VAR is David Room. Let's just hope for a quiet night on that front. No drama, no controversy, just handle the job and let the football do the talking. Speaking of blasts from the past, here's one for you. Remember Ismaila Soro? Aye, the energetic wee midfielder we signed a few years ago with high hopes? Well, he's popped up again. Apparently, he's now on trial with Falkirk. He's been at Beitar Jerusalem, but he's left them and now trying to earn a move back to Scotland. Reports suggest Falkirk have brought him in to train and see if he fits into their plans. It's a funny one. Soro had flashes, didn't he? There were times when he looked like he could become something. That big performance against Lille in the Europa League springs to mind. But ultimately, he just wasn't consistent enough, and he never really nailed down a role in the side. Still, good luck to him if he does land a deal with Falkirk. Always nice to see former Celts finding their way. And speaking of former Celts, bit of a surprise one this? Dedrick Boyata has officially retired from football at the age of 34. Feels early, doesn't it? I mean, he's not ancient by any stretch. But he's decided to hang up the boots and has already jumped into a coaching role with the Belgium under-21s. Fair play to him. Not a bad gig. And again, it's one of those names that brings back memories. He was a big part of those early Rodgers teams. And say what you will about him, he had some big performances in a Celtic shirt. It's mad how fast time moves in football. 1 minute you're signing a 23-year-old prospect from Manchester City, and before you know it, he's calling it quits and moving into management. Makes you appreciate just how quickly things change. So that's the state of play as it stands. We've got a crucial Champions League tie coming up, a potential banana skin in Kazakhstan, a derby at Ibrox looming just days later, and a transfer window that feels like it's barely even started. The tension's starting to build, and the silence from the boardroom isn't helping anyone's nerves. We've been here before. We've seen what happens when we gamble on a thin squad. It rarely ends well. But all we can do now is back the team that's out there, get the job done against Kairat, handle the travel, bring back a result, and then roll into Ibrox with some momentum. If the club does pull off a couple of signings before next week, brilliant. But if not, it's on the lads we've got. No excuses, just get through. And after that, who knows? Maybe the board finally wakes up. Maybe the wallet opens. Maybe we land one or two that genuinely shift the needle. But as it stands, we're walking a tightrope. Champions League qualification, derby bragging rights, transfer pressure. It's all coming to a head over the next fortnight. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. There is a growing murmur echoing through the pubs and terraces of Glasgow, a whisper that could soon become a roar. Sergio Ramos, the legendary Spanish defender, has allegedly signed a lightning-fast contract with Celtic. While the club has yet to confirm the move, sources close to Parkhead suggest negotiations were swift, decisive, and kept tightly under wraps to avoid media leaks. The idea of Ramos donning the famous green and white hoops has sent shockwaves through the Scottish football scene, with supporters split between disbelief and ecstatic anticipation. For a team already known for its fierce determination, adding a player of Ramos' stature would not only raise Celtic's profile across Europe, but also inject a level of leadership and intimidation rarely seen in the Scottish Premiership. Fans recall the Spaniard's fearsome record at Real Madrid and Sevilla, as well as his Champions League winning pedigree, imagining how his presence could bolster a backline that has sometimes looked shaky against high-tempo opponents. While whispers claim that the agreement was finalized in less than 48 hours, details about the contract length and salary remain cloaked in mystery, feeding the rumor mill with endless speculation and brewing an atmosphere of eager suspense around the East End. If the rumor proves true, Sergio Ramos would arrive in Glasgow carrying not just his boots and armband, but an aura of battle-tested authority that few players can match. His experience in high-pressure matches, from El Clasico showdowns to Champions League finals, could transform Celtic's defensive organization and mentality. Supporters are already imagining him barking orders from the back, organizing the defense with precision, and even making those trademark late surges into the box during set pieces. The thought of Ramos facing off against Rangers in an old firm derby has caused an almost feverish excitement among fans with social media. Timelines flooded with speculative lineups and mock-up images of the Spaniard in Celtic kit. However, critics are quick to point out that Ramos is in the twilight of his career, questioning whether he can adapt to the physical and fast-paced nature of Scottish football after years in Spain and France. Yet others argue that class is permanent, and Ramos' reputation alone could force opposition attackers to think twice before charging into Celtic's defensive third. The absence of an official announcement has done nothing to quiet the speculation. If anything, it has only made the whispers grow louder, fueling a sense that something extraordinary may be about to happen. Behind the scenes, the narrative of a lightning deal is being pieced together by those claiming insider knowledge. According to these accounts, Celtic's management acted with unusual speed, identifying Ramos as the perfect fit to stabilize their defense ahead of crucial domestic and European fixtures. Talks allegedly began after a brief exchange between Ramos's representatives and Celtic officials following a scouting report that highlighted the need for a strong vocal leader at the back. Some sources claim Ramos was intrigued by the challenge of Scottish football and the prospect of experiencing the passion of Celtic Park on European nights, which are renowned across the continent. Negotiations were supposedly conducted in utmost secrecy, with club staff sworn to confidentiality to avoid leaks to the press. The supposed turning point came when Ramos expressed willingness to accept a deal shorter than many expected, prioritizing the project and atmosphere over a lengthy contract. This move, if true, would show his intent to make an immediate impact rather than simply extending his playing career. Still, without a formal statement from the club, every fact remains just another piece in the jigsaw puzzle of speculation gripping the green and white faithful. The potential arrival of Ramos has sparked debate not just in Glasgow, but across Scotland and beyond, with pundits weighing in on how his signing could reshape the balance of power in the league. His tactical intelligence, ability to read the game, and knack for scoring crucial goals could elevate Celtic's chances in both domestic and European competitions. Some argue that his presence alone could inspire younger players, raising the overall standard of performance and professionalism within the squad. Others, however, remain skeptical, warning that Scottish pitches in midwinter and the relentless fixture list could test even a player of Ramos's caliber. The buzz is further amplified by the timing. Celtic are entering a crucial phase of the season where defensive solidity could mean the difference between silverware and disappointment. In such a context, bringing in a global icon like Ramos would be as much a psychological statement as a sporting one, sending a clear message to rivals that Celtic intend to dominate. Every hour without an official word from the club adds fuel to the conversation, with supporters refreshing news feeds in the hope that the new sheriff will soon be formally unveiled. For now, the streets of Glasgow hum with speculation, the air thick with anticipation of a signing that could go down as one of the most audacious in Celtic's modern history. The image of Sergio Ramos stepping out onto the Celtic Park turf, saluting the roaring crowd and taking his place at the heart of the defense is one that has captured the collective imagination of the fans. Whether this move is the product of masterful behind-the-scenes work or simply the latest in a long line of transfer rumors remains to be seen. But the very possibility has given the city a jolt of energy. In football, especially in Scotland, legends are made not just by what happens on the pitch, but also by the stories told in the days and nights before a ball is kicked. If the contracto relampago whispers are true, Celtic may have just pulled off a transfer coup that will be talked about for years to come. Until then, the green and white army waits, wonders, and dreams of the moment their new defensive commander strides into the spotlight and makes the East End his fortress. Hello, fan! Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.